3 accidental drops, 2 instances of leaving it in the car overnight, and 1 incident involving Starbucks coffee, and the Retroid Pocket 2 is still kicking ass. Welcome back, fuckers! Mike Osiris here, and I thought it would be kinda fun to revisit the Retroid Pocket 2. I did quite a lot of shit to it since my last video, and I'm itching to get into it, so let's cut the bullshit and begin, shall we? This is the Retroid Pocket 2, 1 year later.
Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
Part 1. Software tweaks. In my previous Retroid video, I talked about the dual-core system, how much the Android OS is superior, and how Retroid's custom OS sucks more cock than Freddie Mercury, Elton John, and James Charles combined. But since then, my brother released a video about something called the Pegasus front end, and shit hasn't been the same since. If you have a Retroid, watch his videos on it. They are some of the most helpful videos that you can find on getting your Retroid up, running, and looking pretty. Before, my Retroid had the Android OS, which is alright, I guess. It serves its basic purpose. But now that I have Pegasus installed, the Android OS gets knocked down to second place, no contest. Before Pegasus, my Retroid looked like a weird-ass horizontal phone, but now, my Retroid looks like a Nintendo Switch, which is absolutely fucking fantastic. I also tweaked the settings so that apps auto-close after I'm done, which has saved a lot of battery and a lot of memory. Part 2. The Game List. Before, I only talked about the games that were more of a challenge to run on this thing, but that was when I was giving a more in-depth review of it. Now, I just want to show the new games I got for it, as well as some of the other games I have. Let's start with Android. On top of Minecraft and Stardew Valley, I got the Sega Forever version of Crazy Taxi. This one is better than the Dreamcast version in almost every way. It's more optimized for Android, so frame rate drops are pretty much non-existent now. All Sega Forever games are controller compatible, so the buttons are still usable, making this the best Crazy Taxi experience. Is what I would fucking say if not for one thing. The Sega Forever games have ads out the ass, and the ad-free paid option is no longer available, meaning 2 things. 1, you have to fucking deal with the ads now, and 2, you have to be connected to the internet to play this fucking single-player game. Yeah, that's fine for phones, they have mobile data, so it's not an issue. But the Retroid isn't really something that necessarily needs internet to play. So unless you turn on your phone's hotspot, you ain't playing this version of Crazy Taxi on your Retroid on the go. Now, I know that this isn't the fault of the Retroid, but that was more of a mini rant about the money-grubbing bullshit that Sega is pulling. What, now that you're making ad revenue from these apps, you get rid of the ad-free option? Fuck off. Now let's talk about the DS games. In my previous video, I bitched about Rock Band Unplugged for the PSP and how it didn't work. But recently, I discovered 2 DS games with the same gameplay that take quite a bit of the sting out of the situation. Rock Band 3 and Lego Rock Band for the DS do quite a good job at scratching that itch that I had for a good rhythm game on the Retroid. My only issue is that some of the songs are shortened to save space. Now how am I supposed to make epic JoJo references if Roundabout is only 3 minutes long? Now for the PSP. I got 2 new games for it, and I'm pleased to tell you that I found more PSP games that run good. The first is Hatsune Miku Project Diva, which also scratches the music game itch, as well as the filthy weeaboo itch, and the other game is an English patch of Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, so that also brings out my inner weeb degenerate. I've had 0 issues with these games so far, which is great because now I have more use for PPSSPP outside of fucking Persona 3. The PS1 has one more game added to the collection, and that's good ol' LSD Dream Emulator. If you haven't played this game yet, and you're looking for trippy and unnerving shit, then what the fuck are you waiting for? Play this one already. Finally, let's talk about the Dreamcast. Before, I made a comment that Half-Life didn't even run, but thanks to Cyberphile, I was told of a different way to go about it. There is an app on the Google Play Store that emulates the first Half-Life game. X-Ash 3D just needs a copy of the Steam version of Half-Life, and you are good to go. Half-Life running on the Retroid, no problem, with minimal frame rate drops. Fuck yeah. And that's pretty much it on the new games I got for my Retroid. I know that my retro game library will keep growing as long as I still have space on my 128GB micro SD card, but I'd figured I'd tell you guys about my most recent additions to the collection. Part 3. Personal Suggestions. Now, as much as I like this thing, it's definitely not perfect, and as a result, I've come up with some suggestions. If they get around to making a Retroid Pocket 3, here's the things that I sincerely hope they add to make it better. First of all, touchscreen support. While they did put in a workaround for this, it would be a lot less of a pain in the ass if they just added a full-on touchscreen to it. If it is able to run Android games, it would be a lot better if most weren't ruled unusable due to needing more than one screen touch every 5 minutes. You know, like what touch mode does. The second thing they should add is more memory and better hardware, obviously. Make it so that Dreamcast, PS1, and PSP games run a lot better, and I'll be sold right off the bat. The third thing that they should add is something external. A fucking cleaning kit. I once accidentally spilled my Starbucks iced coffee on this thing, and while it still turned on just fine, and was still usable, I was picking gunk out of the buttons for a week and a half afterward. Could I have been more careful about it? Sure, but that's not the fucking point. The point is that shit happens, and when shit eventually does happen, I'd like to have the means to sufficiently deal with said shit. So yeah, I'd like a cleaning kit included with the next Retroid. I think that would be a good thing. And my final thing on the suggestion list here is clearer instructions on how to set this fucker up. I stand by my previous statement that the Retroid is definitely not for everyone. If you don't know what you're doing, then don't get this thing unless you pay very good attention to the instructional YouTube videos. If there was a better startup manual included, that would be 1,000 times more convenient, and potentially expose the Retroid to a bigger audience, so I'd be all for specific, clear instructions. And it just so happens that my brother has made those specific, clear instructions. Link in the description. And that just about settles it. If these 4 things were done, the Retroid would be a hell of a lot better than it already is. Leave any suggestions you guys would have in the comments section, because I'm curious to see your ideas, and I'd like to know if I missed some things I should have covered. Final thoughts. Now comes the time to answer the burning question. Does the Retroid Pocket 2 hold up now that time has passed and I've gotten used to it? And the answer to that is an easy fuck yeah it does! This is the most fun I've had with retro gaming ever! Sure, this whole thing seems like a legal gray area, with Retroid OS's ROM store and selling emulation consoles to begin with, but come on now, everyone knows that laws only stop the honest people. If they really cared, they'd have stopped the downloading of ROMs a long time ago. But it's not like I do that. I'm a good boy. I buy all my games and totally don't download them off the internet at all. Are the feds gone now? Whatever. I'm Mike Osiris, and I'm going back under.
Subscribe to Mike Osiris, or else I will use the world to freeze time and steal your bitch. See you in the next video, you pathetic waste of space.